Hello and welcome. You've just taken your digital sleeping pill. No chemicals, no drugs, just my voice, your mind, and the natural rhythm of sleep. For this to work, you need to do one thing: let go. Let go of today. Let go of tomorrow. Let go of everything except the sound of this voice. If a thought tries to sneak in, that's fine. Notice it. Say quietly to yourself, "It's okay." And then bring your attention back here to my words. Just like meditation, drifting away is part of the process. Every time you return, you're one step closer to sleep. At some point, without even noticing, you'll already be gone. Breathing slow, body heavy, mind quiet, dreams arriving. And tomorrow when you wake up, I want you to write one simple word in the comments: sleep. Let me know this pill worked for you. I need you to do one more thing. I need you to turn off the automated next button on YouTube so that you don't keep listening to YouTube videos all night. You will not wake up fully rested if you keep hearing voices all night. Now, get comfortable, close your eyes, breathe out, and let's begin. When the ox had given its life, and from its sacred body the plants and animals were born, the world filled with motion and breath. Grass pressed its green cheek against the earth and learned the wind. Trees set their roots like anchors and their crowns like prayers. Rivers lifted a silver skin and ran singing to the sea. Hooves found paths, wings found thermals, fins learned the deep, and the first dawn chorus tuned itself to light. The world had become a dwelling of life, yet not yet a mirror of the heavens. For among all the creatures there was none who could receive the weight of a thought and answer with a choice, none who could feel an ache for the good and shape the ache into an act, none who could look up at night and wonder if the stars were questions waiting for a voice. The earth was alive, but it did not yet speak. Ahura Mazda, wise lord, whisperer of order into chaos, saw that creation longed for an eye that could reflect back the light and a heart that could become its companion. So he breathed and shaped and called forth a being unlike the others. Upright, luminous, bearing a glint of the sun within, he set this figure upon the earth and named him Gaiomard, the first man, the bright-boned ancestor of humankind. Gaiomard did not begin as a king, nor as a warrior, nor as a judge. He began as a witness. He stood at the hinge of the world where the battle between truth and the lie moved like a hidden tide beneath all things. His body shone not as a threat but as an invitation. He did not need to conquer to be great. His greatness was to receive the world as it was and still choose the good. He learned the rhythms written into creation. He learned the kindness of shade and the courage of flame. He learned that water runs to where it belongs, and that what belongs to the truth moves toward it even through crooked stones. He listened to the wind's doctrine, how it erases its own footprints and still returns. He watched the hawk stitching circles into the sky and the fox reading a story in the snow. He understood that each thing has a law, and that laws are not chains but paths. But the world is not a quiet garden. Beneath the pattern of good, another pattern gnawed. Angra Mainyu, spirit of the contrary, heard the rise of Gaiomard's breathing and grew restless. He had struck down the primordial ox. He had seen life spring from death, and he could not bear that light might keep turning his victories into seeds. Let there be a failing, he hissed into the dark. Let there be an end that does not become a beginning. He sent sickness like a vine whose touch is bruise. He sent a weariness that entered the bones like winter. He sent decay, an alphabet of unspelling, and Gaiomard, who met the world with clear eyes, met also the shadow that falls upon all living things. He did not rage, he did not run. He stood as long as he could stand, and when the standing was done, he lay down upon the earth with a trust that felt like dawn. 30 years he lived, and then he died. For a moment the world grew still, as if sound itself were listening. It is a heavy thing, the first death. The earth did not yet know how to hold it. The wind did not yet know what to do with a name it could not return. But Ahura Mazda knew. He who laid down the world's law had also laid down this, that endings, when given to the truth, do not end. Where Gaiomard fell, the ground received him not as loss but as offering. His body became the vocabulary of the depths. Metals woke like sleeping ribs in the dark, gold with its quiet sun, silver with its cool moon, copper with the patient breath of smelting, iron with the promise of tools and plows, and yes, the solemn danger of weapons. The bones of the earth learned a new strength from the bones of the man, and the world, which had known only the soft grammar of fiber and flesh, learned the bright precision of ore. Yet the deeper gift was hidden in a smaller place. Seed, bright as a thought when it first is born, did not vanish with his breath. The sun gathered it the way a mother gathers the cry of a child, tenderly, with purpose. Light warmed it, time cupped it, and in a manner as ordinary as grass and as miraculous as the first morning, from the purified seed of Gaiomard sprang 2 shoots of humanity, Mashia and Mashiana, the first pair, not radiant like their forefather, but human in the new sense of the word, mortal, breakable, precious, because breakable. They stood where he had fallen and looked at the world as if the world had just been named. They felt hunger and learned bread. They felt thirst and learned the path of water. They felt fear and learned the shelter of each other's hands. And in the learning their lives braided with the law of the good, and sometimes, under pressure, frayed toward the lie. For this is the way of humankind. We are born into the war that began before we breathed, and every breath is a small battle we must fight with ourselves. Do not mistake this for despair. It is the dignity of our kind that we can choose. We inherit not just the wound, but the will to turn the wound into wisdom, the fear into courage, the sorrow into compassion. The will to stand where the first man lay and say, darkness does not get the last word. So the generations began, like rivers fed by snow. Children learned the shapes of letters with their fingers on bark and stone. Women learned the stubborn grammar of soil, how it resists and then relents, and how growth is a kind of covenant. Men learned the geometry of beams raised against the sky, and the way a house teaches a family to be a family. The elders learned to harvest memory, threshing the chaff of pride from the grain of truth. And over all the old battle moved, truth and lie, light and shadow, choice and habit, courage and sleep. It was not always fair, it was not always kind, but always, always there was meaning, because there was the possibility to choose the good. If this were only a story of a man's death and a lineage born, it would still be worth telling. But it is more. It is a revelation about the way the world itself works. From the ox, life poured into the fields and forests. From the man, life poured into the human line and into the very veins of the earth. Destruction intended by the dark became material for creation by the light. What was meant as an end became a beginning. This is not optimism, this is law. And the law did not keep itself a secret in one land. Across mountains and deserts and seas, the whisper moved, sometimes as a shout, sometimes as a hymn, sometimes as a tale told with smoke-stained hands by firelight. The whisper said, "The world is born through sacrifice." The whisper said, "From the body of the first many will live." The whisper said, "Death is a gate, not a wall." In the far north, where night walks with the winter and the sky is a frozen river of stars, the people told of Ymir, a giant whose vastness felt like a map of all that is. The gods slew him. His blood ran down to become the seas that cradle the lands. His bones rose as mountains. His skull arched like a dome for the heavens. His hair became forests, his eyebrows a fence to keep the ocean from swallowing the world. The first death became the world's frame. If you listen under that story, you can hear the same rhythm that beats in Gavaevodata's fall. A being dies, and from that ending, a world begins. In India, sages sang the Purusha Sukta, the hymn of the cosmic man. Purusha is offered in a grand rite, and from his mouth the priests arise. From his arms the warriors, from his thighs the merchants, from his feet the servants. His mind becomes the moon, his eye the sun, his breath the wind, his head the sky, his feet the earth. Society, cosmos, order, shaped from a primordial offering. The language is different, the grammar is the same. That the many arise from the one, and that the passage is an altar. Further west, in Egypt, the Apis bull walked with ceremonial slowness, clothed not in speech but in significance. He was strength and fertility given hooves. He was a sign that life concentrates itself sometimes in a body we must learn to honor. People knelt not because they worshipped an animal as an animal, but because they perceived that the energy which feeds the world sometimes wears a form. The ox of the world's beginning found an echo there. In India again the cow learned to be called mother. She gave milk, and milk learned to be the taste of mercy. To harm her felt like an error against the grammar of gratitude. Myths ripple outward into ethics. When a story teaches that life depends upon a gentle giver, later hearts learn to protect the gentle givers among us. And then, in a later age, in a land of olives and dust, the story found a new turn. A man walked and taught and healed, and the wound of the world gathered itself into his body, and his dying learned to be called salvation. In Christianity, the death of Christ becomes a gate through which life pours in more abundant measure. It is not the same myth, it is not even the same metaphysics, but hear the resonance, the one for the many. Life through loss, a fall that becomes a rising written in other ink. Do these stories imitate the old Persian tale, or do they all drink from a spring older than written memory? No scholar can prove the secret pathway of a myth through centuries of mouths and migrations, but there is a thread that does not break. When a culture trusts that loss can become the seedbed of life, it writes that trust into its holiest stories. Zoroastrianism, among the oldest of the keepers of written wisdom, laid down an early testimony. The ox dies, the world lives, the man dies, humankind lives. The pattern is not less true because it is shared. It may be more true because it is shared. Return now to the place where Mashya and Mashyana stood. Think of their first night. They do not yet possess a calendar or a liturgy or a law. They possess each other. They possess an inheritance that is both burden and blessing, to live between light and darkness and to choose. They wrap their arms around themselves and around one another and learn that warmth is communal, that courage is contagious. In the morning they will attempt a task whose difficulty they cannot yet guess, to be human. They fail often. Every child of theirs will fail often. Some will choose the lie and call it the truth until they cannot tell the difference. Some will choose the truth and call it impossible and give up. Some will choose nothing and let habit decide for them. But always, across the generations, there will be those who remember that Gavaevodata stood, and when he fell in faith, that the world beneath their feet carries metal that once was a man, and that their hands, when they build a plow, a cup, a nail, a bell, are engaged in a quiet resurrection. There will be smiths who know in their marrow that every furnace is a small sun, and every ingot remembers the first light that warmed the first seed. There will be mothers who teach their children to be gentle with bread because wheat was once a stork learning to bow, and because hunger teaches humility. There will be judges who remember that laws are not clubs, but lamps, and lamps are for roads, not cages. There will be singers who understand that a melody is the shortest bridge between sorrow and hope, and that hope, once bridged, learns to walk. And over the arc of centuries the battle continues, not a spectacle of armies alone, but the quieter warfare of wills. The lie invents fashions to dress itself as common sense. The truth learns patience and keeps its shape. People tire, fail, repent, begin again. Evil makes noise, good keeps time. And always the oldest law persists. What is offered to the good becomes seed. Perhaps that is the deepest meaning of Gavaevodata. Not simply that he died and that from his death we live. Not simply that the metals in our tools remember him like a distant father. Not even that our first parents sprang from a sun-warmed gift. Rather this, that the structure of the world allows transformation, that loss is convertible when given to the right account, that suffering can be spent in such a way that it purchases meaning for those who come after, that the dark, which wanted a period, was given a comma. So when you stand in a field and listen to the wind finding the ears of barley, when you hold a hammer and feel the honest weight of iron, when you sit with someone you love and you say nothing because silence sometimes tells the truth better than speech, remember the first man. Remember how he lived with open eyes and how he fell without bitterness. Remember that your choices braid into a rope long enough to pull others from the water. Remember, and then act. For the story does not end with a tomb or a pedestal. It ends with a task, and the task is to continue creation, to take the life you were handed, already threaded with paradox, and to thread it further with courage, generosity, clarity, and care. The evil spirit still works, but his tools are borrowed. He cannot create, only corrupt. You, child of Gavaevodata, can create. You can turn mourning into bread, metal into shelter, breath into speech, pain into gentleness, fear into fidelity. You can put your hands to the law that made the world and work alongside it. And if in the working you find your strength failing, if the night presses close and the stars look far and indifferent, If you begin to believe that your giving is swallowed and lost, remember the older arithmetic, that what looks like subtraction may be the beginning of multiplication, and that the grave is not a vault but a seed bed. Across the north, remember Ymir. Across the Ganges plain, remember Purusha. Beside the Nile, remember Apis. In the village church, remember Christ. Not to flatten them into one, not to steal one story for another, but to hear how the world itself keeps retelling a truth too large for a single tongue, that the one can become the many, that the fall can become a rising, that death offered becomes life. And among these voices, remember the old Persian song, the ox fell and the fields woke, the man fell and humanity rose. If you must name this truth, give it a simple name, the law of the good. It is older than empires and younger than a child's first word. It is modest. It does not need a crown. It needs a life, and then another, and then another, until the earth itself becomes a liturgy of chosen acts. This is how the story of Gavaevodata becomes more than memory. It becomes a map. And like all good maps, it points not only to where we came from, but to where we must go, toward the light, through the shadow, carrying one another when we must, laying ourselves down when we must, and trusting because the world has taught us so from the beginning, that when the seed falls, the harvest learns our names. There is one more part in this digital sleeping pill. If you're still here and awake, well, then it's time for the strong stuff. I understand if you're not into meditation, but this type of meditation is proven very effective for someone that can't fall asleep. My mission is for you to have a really good night's rest. And for that mission to succeed, you need to help me help you. Just listen to the voice and follow the instructions, and you will be sleeping in no time. Remember, turn off the autoplay button on YouTube if you haven't already. You don't want YouTube to keep hopping onto new videos all night. It will ruin your sleep. It's important that you let your brain rest.
Sit upright. Let your spine rise naturally. Hands resting gently. Eyes half closed or fully closed. Begin with the breath. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. You are not here to think. You are here to see. You are here to observe. Feel the ground beneath you. It supports you. It holds you. In Zoroastrian wisdom, fire is sacred. It does not vanish, it purifies. Let your awareness now be like a flame, steady, radiant, unwavering. each breath, sink deeper. With each exhale, release tension. With each inhale, receive stillness. Now, we will begin counting the breath. Count silently in your mind. Only observe. Do not think. Inhale. Exhale. 1. Inhale. Exhale. 2. Inhale. Exhale. 3. Continue slowly up to 10. When you reach 10, return to 1. If your mind wanders, do not judge. Simply begin again. Observe the rise of the inhale. Observe the fall of the exhale. Do not chase thoughts. Do not resist thoughts. Simply return. Again. 1. 2. 3. Breath after breath, cycle after cycle. The numbers are a rhythm into silence. You are the... So too, your separate self dissolves. So too, your breath becomes the world. You are not separate. You are part of the eternal order. Part of Asha. Truth. Cosmic harmony. Rest here. Observe here. Dissolve into the greater whole. Now, slowly return. Feel your breath again. The rise, the fall. Feel the ground beneath you. Solid. Present. You have seen the void. You have tasted silence. Carry this flame with you. In Zoroastrian wisdom, life is made meaningful through good thoughts, good words, good deeds. When you are ready, open your eyes gently. Bring the fire of awareness into your life.